Okay, class, we're now looking at connective tissue. This is going to be under Histology 2. My Histology 2 PowerPoint. Histology 2. Okay, connective tissue is the most widely distributed and abundant tissue type you have. Ideally, to be a connective tissue, it should compose of cells, fibers, and something called amorphous ground substance. It should consist of cells, fibers, and something called amorphous ground substance. The functions of connective tissue are bind and support like a filler, protection, immune, white blood cell, the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is under connective tissue. Insulation, fat. Remember, fat is the poorest conductor of heat, which makes it the insulator of the body, and transportation like in blood. Blood is a connective tissue. Under connective tissues, the two words I want you to know, not just for connective tissue, but for other tissue types too. Parenchyma and stroma. Parenchyma is the most important cell in said area. Most important cell. Stroma is everything else. So if you had an organization, and let's say you said, well, who's the most important person? Let's say you say it's the president, okay? Then everybody else, which would be the secretary, the treasurer, the parliamentarian, everything would be stroma. So just like in nerve tissue, the neurons are. In muscle tissue, the muscle cells. Everything else, not just cells, but anything else is stroma. In soft connective tissue, the fibroblast is the most important cell. Why? Because that cell secretes the fibers and the amorphous ground substance. Okay? The cells of connective tissue are heavily mitotic. The secretory cells, which would secrete the fibers and amorphous, are generally called blasts, and when they mature and aren't secreting, they generally are called cytes. Fibroblasts would be the ones that for soft connective tissue. Chondroblast in cartilage, secreting the cartilage area. Osteoblast for bone. Hematopoietic stem cells would be for blood. Blood is a connective tissue. Then you have fat cells and other things. The three fiber types that you have are collagen, which is the most abundant protein in the human body. It's a strong fiber. Elastic fibers give elasticity. And elasticity means to stretch out and go back to the original shape. And reticular fibers are thin and delicate. It's like if you had a diamond ring, you'd want to put it on cotton or velvet, nothing scratchy. So for cells like your blood-forming cells and so forth that are real important and are delicate, you want to put them on reticular fibers. So the three fiber types are collagen, elastic, and reticular. Okay? There are, even though the book doesn't show it, there are several types of collagen. Different types of collagen depending on the tissue distribution. So they are different, but collagen inherently is your strong fiber. And that's true in all of these types here, even the subtypes of collagen. Okay, we go further. The amorphous ground substance. Amorphous means without form. It's generally kind of a runny jello type of thing. And it assumes the shape of the container. That's what amorphous means. The amorphous ground substances are made up of proteoglycans. Proteoglycans have a protein core and glycosaminoglycans hanging off. Okay. That ground substance then has proteoglycans, and it also has some adhesion proteins in there. Now here would be an example. Amorphous grounds are composed of proteoglycans and cell adhesion. Here would be a protein coat. Now right here is a proteoglycan. Let's say here, right here is the protein core, and hanging off of here are glycosaminoglycans, which these are. These are types of glycosaminoglycans here. I'm going to move this over a little bit. These are types of glycosaminoglycans, chondroitin sulfate, dermatin, and they are located in different areas depending on the connective tissue type. depending on the connective tissue type. Then you have some CAMs, which are called cell adhesion molecules. Examples of CAMs are fibronectin, vitronectin. So this is to show you an area. Here's collagen, and interspersed, which would be a fiber, interspersed are these proteoglycans there. Okay, so we go further. Now, of the connective tissue types, here would be connective tissue proper, and I'm going to call that connective tissue proper really, that's your soft connective tissue. Then you have cartilage, you have bone, you have blood. Okay, liquid connective tissue. What's not shown is lymph. Lymph is a connective tissue. We'll talk about in the NP2. So you have this, cartilage, bone, blood, and lymph. Okay, so we're in this. Let me kind of explain what I'm going to do in this chapter here. I'm not going to. All I want you to know is blood is a connective tissue type. Bone. We have a whole chapter on bone. I'm not going to really even get into cartilage in this. I'm just going to say that we have 3 types of cartilage, and we'll address that when we do the bone chapter. So I'm interested really in this chapter, just in this soft connective tissue. So we go further. Here's soft connective tissue. Now that I'm going to divide the soft connective tissue up into 2 types. Embryonic connective tissue, which is present in the embryo, but some of it persists into adulthood, and then your adult connective tissue. Okay? Here's cartilage. Like I said, for cartilage, all I want you to know is the 3 types, but really we're going to address that in another chapter. Okay? Liquid connective tissue, blood, and lymph we talked about. All right. So here would be, now connective tissue, remember, comes from mesoderm. Right here would be, let's say, a mesoderm cell would turn into a mesenchyme. Mesenchyme is embryonic connective tissue. So mesenchyme cells come from mesoderm. So you'd have mesoderm turning into this, and then they would further differentiate from this into chondroblast for cartilage, fat cells, soft connective tissue cells that secrete fibroblasts, and so forth like that there. Okay. So we go now to classes of connective tissue. Here's connective tissue proper. Okay. That's a soft connective tissue, a dense regular, but I'm going to get into that, so you just kind of, all right. Here would be a snippet from soft connective tissue. Let's see what we have in this soft connective tissue. Okay, we have our fibroblast, which secretes the fibers and amorphous ground substance. In there, you may also have lymphocytes and fat cells, neutrophils, the extracellular matrix, collagen, elastic. So this is just a generic drawing to give you an example of soft connective tissue. Okay, we said that we had embryonic connective tissue, mesenchyme and mucoid. Okay, mesenchyme, which you saw up here, can give rise to the other. Now, mesoderm forms mesenchyme, and then mesenchyme can give rise to connective tissues. Okay, mesenchyme. Mesenchyme persists into adulthood. So even if a person's 40, they still will have some mesenchyme, but a lot less than somebody 6 years old. Mesenchyme can act as a backup. See, when you have it, if let's say your bone breaks, mesenchyme could act as a backup to give you more osteoblasts. So that's why the younger the person is, the better bone healing, because they have backup cells to make more bone. Whereas if you're much older, it's not the case. Okay, mucoid connective tissue is pretty much just in the embryo, but even up to birth. Mucoid connective tissue is like Horton's jelly. In the umbilical cord, when you cut the umbilical, you see a little jelly-like substance in there, a little clear, almost looks like apple jelly. That's an example of mucoid connective tissue. Here's an example of mesenchyme. See how cellular it is? These cells can differentiate into other stuff as you go back here, and you can see. So it's quite cellular. Okay, this mesenchyme. Here's mucoid connective tissue, like the Horton's jelly and so forth, and you can see it's more mucousy looking. More mucousy looking. But both of these, this and this, are classified under an embryonic connective tissue. They are soft. Okay. So now we'll look more at this connective tissue, loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. Let's talk on that. Okay. Remember that connective tissue proper is soft connective tissue. Loose connective tissue means, so we have three things involved: cells, fibers, and amorphous ground substance. Cells, fibers, and amorphous ground substance. Cells, fibers, and amorphous ground substance. Loose connective tissue has less fibers. Loose connective tissue has less fibers. Dense connective tissue is stronger. It has more fibers. So loose has less fibers, has more amorphous ground substance, and in some cases cells. This has more fibers and less of the cells and AGS. Now, under dense connective tissue, we have dense regular. If the fibers, and we'll see that in a moment, go in the same direction, that's called dense regular. Now, dense regular means that that force must be in that direction. Force must be in that direction. Dense irregular is where the fibers go in different directions. Then we have elastic, where you have abundance of elastic fibers. Okay, we'll look at that. So here's connective tissue proper here, which would be down here. See, here's epithelia, so that's the connective tissue. Right here's a soft, we call it a reeler. A reeler connective tissue is another name for loose connective tissue. So you have a few elastic fibers, collagen, but see how loose it is? Not a lot of fibers. Gel-like matrix wraps around and so forth like that. You can read this. Okay. Here would be another soft connective tissue, which is fat tissue. Right here is a fat cell known as an adipose cell. Adipose. Now the nucleus is to one side. It's eccentrically placed. All what's up in here is fat. Now I want you to go back and think for a moment. What is your storage fat? What is your storage fat? Remember, your storage carbohydrate was glycogen. Your storage fat are triglycerides. So in this cell are triglycerides. Now, when you're born, you have a certain, you grow a certain number of fat cells. Okay, let's say. Now, these particular fat cells get bigger. You don't mitose when you get fat. These cells store more triglycerides. So when you get thinner, they take some away. Okay? The only time you're going to remove fat cells is if you do liposuction or something else to take them out. Okay? So that's what we have there. Here is reticular connective tissue, like in the spleen. These dark fibers here are reticular fibers. They've been stained. Okay? Been stained. Now, see how the fibers are going in one direction here? This is a dense, see, a lot of fibers. Compare that to this. Compare that, that's a loose. This is a dense, but all the fibers are going in the same direction. That means the tension of pull has to be in that direction. See, if I pull from the side, you're going to splay the fibers. So the force has to be in that direction. That's why a tendon, because you're only pulling in one direction, you have to have the fibers. It's like taking a piece of paper and jerking it. Okay? So the strength is in that direction. Is in that direction right there. Okay? That's a dense regular. Right here, the fibers are going in different directions. So this is a dense irregular. This was a dense regular, and this is a dense irregular. Here's an elastic. See all these fibers? This is in the wall of your big blood vessel known as the aorta, elastic. That's still a dense, though. See how dense those fibers are? All right, we're going to stop right there with this video and pick up the next one.